The recent release of Venom Let There Be Carnage has warranted a revitalized interest in Sony's Venom franchise, exploring how well the character of Eddie Brock can hold his own without the likes of Spider-Man across from him with relative success. Throughout both films, we are given an in-depth look at the relationship between Eddie and the symbiotic being known as Venom, who is a creature known as a Clintar. These symbiotes in their natural form take on the appearance of sludges that can bond with their hosts. But is there an actual precedent for real-life symbiotes here in the real world? Surprisingly, the traits that the Venom symbiote and the other Clintar symbiotes display bear a striking resemblance to some actual real-world organisms here in our very own planet, one of which was only recently discovered in Japan within the last 2 years. So stick with us, watchers of the Marvel Multiverse, and welcome back to our real-life Marvel series where we cover the real-life counterparts to Marvel mainstays here in our real world. And today, let's dive into the science of this so-called real-life Clintar, as well as discuss some other fascinating aspects of the animal kingdom that seem to serve as a real-life iteration of the Venom symbiote. And stick around to the end to find out how ants might actually be battling their own zombie apocalypse. Just recently, a massive sentient black sludge was discovered and brought to the wider internet as a whole for analysis, and though this so-called discovery was a recent event happening in April of 2020, scientists and researchers have come forward and identified this being as a bootlace worm. While this is a relatively new revelation for the public at large, researchers have been studying this fascinating organism for centuries. The bootlace worm is a species of ribbon worm that typically ranges of size from 15 to 50 feet, though some specimens have grown in excess of 180 feet long. For reference, the average length of an adult blue whale is about 80 feet long, and these pseudo-symbiotes are widely regarded as some of the largest organisms on the planet, when they are allowed to grow and develop in their proper environment. Though we must reiterate, most of these bootlace worms are much smaller than this, and their standard size did not reach lengths this great. The bootlace worm also produces a toxic mucus that has been shown to be capable of killing full-size crabs and crustaceans, and this toxin has been extensively studied by scientists around the world. But perhaps the leading research has been done by Professor Ulf Göransson, who is working from the University of Uppsala in Sweden, who worked to extract the most potent toxins that the worm secretes when disturbed or upset for analysis. He goes on the record to state, quote, "The peptide toxin named Nemtide A1 is the most poisonous substance to have been found in Sweden's animal kingdom, and the fact that it may be possible to use it makes the discovery even more exciting." End quote. The type of neurotoxin is able to interfere with what is known as sodium channels in the brains of organisms, causing paralysis and the shutdown of internal processes. We know that if Venom is to bond with a being for too long without being a biologically compatible match, he will sooner or later kill the host. It's quite possible that the Venom symbiote is secreting different neurotoxins that are having similar effects on its hosts, only on far larger scale, and they are far more potent and far more toxic to humans than the bootlace worm. Eddie Brock's unique biology and physiology, by the logic of the Venom films, is what protects him from the more harmful effects, as it's stated that bonding with the symbiote is like being an organ donor, wherein the host and the recipient have to be compatible with one another. We also know that one of Venom's most commonly utilized aspects is his tongue, and surprisingly enough, the bootlace worm possesses what is known as a proboscis, which is an additional appendage that behaves very similarly to what we see in the films as well as in the comics. This additional appendage is able to shoot out of the worm's head and latch onto an organism, ultimately drawing it back and allowing for consumption by the bootlace worms. But what about Venom's ability to take over the mind of a host, and will it to do his bidding? Does the bootlace worm have a similar ability? Well, kind of. The bootlace worm's neurotoxin may not be deadly to humans and larger organisms, but that does not mean it doesn't have a negative effect on the health and well-being of a person. The toxins work on a principle of sodium channel blockage, which can inhibit the mental stability of someone who has been affected, and is actually one of the side effects commonly associated with excessive cocaine usage. This blockage of sodium slows the rate of what is called initial rapid depolarization, which in simple terms is affecting the positive or negative charge in a cell. Cells naturally have electrical charges that typically lean to the negative side. Depolarization is when these charges are brought closer to neutral, and hyperpolarization is when they are enhanced and pushed further in one direction. Sodium helps to depolarize these cells by adding a positive charge to the negatively charged cells and bringing it closer to neutral, similar to a magnet. While the exact science is rather complex and not worth delving into now, the important thing to note is that sodium assists in cellular stability, and sodium channel inhibitors block sodium from doing its job. Therefore, tampering with this process, as the bootlace worm's neurotoxins can be highly dangerous. Interference with sodium channels commonly causes severe mental impairment, loss of judgment, and a myriad of other health risks, including blurred vision, nausea, headaches, and dizziness. While the worm can't outright control minds, what it can do is impair mental functions, but there are many other organisms in the animal kingdom that are in fact capable of hijacking the mental control of others and guiding their wills. Terrifying, but true. For this, we turn to cordyceps fungus, and specifically the species of Ophiocordyceps unilateralis, which can quite literally turn ants into zombies. You heard that right. Ants are battling their own version of the zombie apocalypse. This cordyceps fungus acts by producing spores that latch onto an ant and infect their system, slowly and systematically taking over their motor functions and stripping of their own individuality and free will. The ant is then compelled to leave its nest and venture off to more humid environments that are more favorable to the fungus growth and development. This fungus then directs the ant to reach a high vantage point, roughly 10 inches off the ground, where it latches onto its perch and then dies. From this point, the fungus feeds on the discarded nutrient matter of the dead ant before projecting its spores from the ant's head to the world down below, where it can infect more ants and begin the process over again. What's truly fascinating about these cordyceps fungi, however, is that there seems to be no evidence that it infects the brains of ants, only the motor functions, muscular groups, and abnormal regions, which means that the ant may be unable to control its motor functions while simultaneously not having suffered any mental impairment. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of these fascinating corners of the animal kingdom? Did you know that a real-life symbiote kind of exists here in the real world? And what other topics would you like to see discussed here on the Real Life Marvel series? We're trying to gain traction and launch this brand new series, so if you're interested in the more real-life aspects of Marvel, please be sure to comment, share this video with others that may be interested, and like the video as well. Thank you as always so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and have a great day.